You're about to listen in on a fun conversation I had with Fakih out of San Diego. We talk about networking, referrals, and really taking care of clients with a nurturing relationship. As always, I'm your San Francisco referral partner, Shawn Kunkler. Sam, what's going on, man? How are you?
Hey, Sean. Long time no talk.
I know, dude. You've been traveling a bunch and just so much life happening, which is good. All good stuff.
Life, summertime, business is picking up, all the things.
Yeah, it's all good stuff, which I
Yeah.
which I love. Really quick to give everybody just a quick high level of who you are and what you do in a couple sentences. What do you do?
Well, I like to bring people and properties together. And um, I've been in the business for 20 years and been a roller coaster ride since 2004. Seen every market up, down, and in between. And it just reminds you when these market ebbs and flows that it's a people business. And as long as you're good to your people, the business will continue. And that just gives me the best, like we were talking about recently, it just gives me the best feeling when you get the right people together with their home. And it's just what it's all about.
Yeah, you know what? It's kind of funny, and it's obviously bad for business. But my favorite thing is when somebody finds that forever home, when they're just like, and you know it, and you know you're never going to work with them again. But it's like it is the absolute best feeling in the world.
Oh, they are stoked, man.
But yeah, on a different level.
And
It's different.
some particular clients come to mind right now. I helped them probably 15, 16 years ago. They're young kids that just got married. Now they have kids. They've put a pool in the backyard. I text them. I stay in touch with them on social media. They're never freaking moving and they're so happy. And I'm just like, yes, we did that. We put this together. You, me,
I love it.
them. And it's just a great feeling.
That's super cool. I mean, and it's like, in the next generation, their kids, they have this, it's their home. It's where they are
Yeah,
growing up. Like it'll always be that's our first home. That's like, that is the home where I grew up, which
that
is
street,
really,
that
it's just,
memory.
yeah. I mean, it's such an amazing part of our lives. But on the flip side, from a business perspective, it's a terrible model because that's it.
But sometimes you
um,
create your biggest raving fans, right? And that leads to more clients and more business when you tap into their sphere.
Yeah, and I know this about you because I've sent referrals down to San Diego from San Francisco. And I know that a huge, huge, huge part of your business, just from all of our conversations, is actually the referral in the repeat business. Talk to me a little bit more about that. Obviously, you just shared you stay in touch with this couple who bought 16 years ago, and you're still in flow with them. But what are some of the activities you do to stay connected to past clients?
Some of it's planned and methodical, and some of it is just relationship and natural. So,
Mm,
keeping in touch with people strategically through your database, whether it's, monthly or weekly newsletters, to putting together small or large client events.
mhm.
I've done the bigger ones where you just get a bunch of people together. Um, I've had this idea from another agent that I mastermind with is getting smaller groups of friends and clients together that kind of match a little better in smaller or more
Mhm.
intimate settings. I'd like to do that. But also sometimes the ones that are easy to stay in touch with, you become friends with, and you're either on social media together, or you're going to a Padre game together, or you're grabbing
Yeah.
drinks together. Those are the fun, easy ones. Um, but you got to stay on task with some of the other ones that aren't so effortless.
I agree. I mean, some people just have, they're totally different. either phases of life or different, completely different interests, and it's just harder to click with them. While other
Yeah,
clients enjoy the same exact things you do, so you gel on much more levels. Um, yeah, and it's interesting. I'm actually working right now on a program for Compass Academy that is teaching client relationship marketing. And as I'm unpacking this section about events, the one thing that I've realized from having so many conversations with agents is when somebody says the word event, like we think of like booking 100 people at the opera and getting together as like this mass group, whereas the reality is an event can be two parties who don't know each other coming together in the same place. It's lit. That's an event, and it can be really simple. And I think more often than not, agents just way over complicate it, and they way over index, and they can just do really simple things.
absolutely. I mean, that to your point, it causes analysis paralysis, and then you just end up not doing anything. Where you can call up a couple,
Yeah.
two, three people and get them together for a dinner or a happy hour or
Yeah.
anything, a barbecue in your own backyard, right?
I literally was thinking that. Like, I have obviously my personal close friends who, ironically, both bought houses. All three actually bought houses with me. But if one of them are coming over for the weekend, maybe like 2 weeks from now, be like, hey, come over for a barbecue. I'll invite one of my clients who I think is who would gel with that group, and then just like
Mm-hmm.
come hang out. We'll be in the backyard at 5 o'clock. I'll fire up the grill. Like,
Yeah,
bring a drink if you want, and then
those are
it's
the
just
easy ones, right?
it's super
Those are the easy
casual.
ones, but we have to also uh, be mindful of the ones that aren't so easy. And those are the ones that might fall through the cracks.
Yeah, and to your point earlier, that's really where it goes back to you have to have a database. Like you have to have people in groups, and you have to be mindful about who they are, what's important to them, and then trying to figure out, all right, I'm doing this event, who is going to be the best people for it, not who are the easiest people. Um, and I think, with branding and marketing is don't think about the end result, but think about who you got these clients who you don't really know a lot about and you don't have a lot of touch points. So then how do you create an experience for them or something, some sort of touch point, like some sort of conversation starter. The easiest conversation starter I've had is in San Francisco on Tuesday, we do brokers tour. And so it's the opportunity where all the properties are open. You can go check out the properties. And any time I'm in the neighborhood of a property that I sold, I'll take a picture. Sometimes I'm lucky enough to park in proximity to the house that I sold, and I'll take a picture of like my car with their house in the background. And then I'll just text him and say, "Hey, I'm out on broker's tour. I promise I'm not stalking you." And it's just like, a quick like snarky little joke, and it usually spawns a conversation. It's like, "Oh, how you been? Oh, I've been really good. Like, what are you guys up to?" And it like sometimes something grows from that and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes I've had people like, "Oh my god, it's been forever. We should have you over for dinner." I've had all kinds of responses, but I think at the end of the day, people appreciate when they're thought of spontaneously, is my opinion.
Absolutely. That's when you get the best responses. And like you said, you don't want to be attached to the end goal of what that means. Just shoot a text, say hi, see how they're doing.
100%. Like Sky Michaels has a great text. Who's Sky Michaels is a business coach if people aren't familiar, but he has a brilliant text of people you haven't talked to in a while. Just say, I was going through my database or I was looking at homes I sold in the past, and and your name came up and I thought of you. I just wanted to say hi. Like, that's it. Like, it's just like a really It's not dissimilar from like you and I. You've been traveling a ton. I've been running around. We just haven't had a chance to connect. And like we'd shoot each other a text like, "Hey man, like how's it going? What's going on in your side?"
That's it. Sometimes they'll be in the car and, whether it's a neighborhood or whatever, I think of someone, a past client, a friend, and instead of trying to remember to do it, just tell your phone, text this person while you're driving. Hey, how's it going? Just thought of you.
So true.
It's that simple.
I have one like simple rule when I get in my car. I mean, traffic is horrible in the Bay Area, so I'm either listening to an audiobook or something educational or I'm calling somebody. Period. Like
Hmm.
those are my two options. Like if I don't feel like talking, great, I'll learn something. And if I feel like talking, like sometimes I'm just trying to like maybe think about something or process. And so I'm always trying to leverage that as an opportunity.
It's time. It's a lot, especially if you got a lot of windshield time, you got to put to use.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you're just like, sure, rocking out to your favorite song is good if you want to get pumped before the listing, but you
That's
can't do that
important
all the
too,
time.
in its own time, right?
Yeah. It's funny. I have a playlist for listing presentations.
Do you? You
I
want to
do.
share a couple songs with me?
Hell no. Nope. It's so funny. If people knew what was on there, it's funny. It's such a hodgepodge. It's like it's pretty. It's actually hilarious. It's like from Jay-Z to like Metallica. It's like
All right,
it's
you're gonna have to share that with me on Spotify or whatever it is.
it's funny on Spotify. It's actually called Pumped. Like anytime I'm like, all right, here we go. Like I need to like put my game face on.
Well, some people have a running mix. Some people have a what's it called? A gym mix. You got to have
Yeah.
a listing appointment mix.
Yeah, I think you should. I mean, music definitely puts you in a state of mind. And so if you feel positive and resourceful and energized when you walk in, they're gonna pick that up from you. But if you
Oh
walk
yeah,
in, I mean, you've been doing this 20 years, you know it. If you walk in knowing you've lost, you've lost.
yeah. Hey, do
Like
you
it's
think if we were realtors in the '80s, we'd have a mixtape
8 track.
recorded off the radio?
That is freaking hilarious. Um, it's funny downstairs at my house. We have my son plays guitar. Both of them do, and so
Cool.
there's like it's hard to explain, but basically we have like kitchen, dining, and then there's like this weird space that we never knew what to do with, and it's now like the practice room. And so the amp is in there, the guitars are all set up, and then you have off to the side are all the records. And so it just became like the music space. It's the hangout. Every time people come over the house, it's like where everybody
Cool.
congregates. A couple of my friends are in bands, so it inevitably becomes like a Neil Diamond sing along session at some point. But
Very
on the
cool.
wall, we have Cielo made. It's really big. It's probably like 2 or 3 feet wide. But it looks like an old school mixtape, and it literally says '90s mixtape on it.
That's awesome. You should be doing your
Super
podcast from
fun,
that room.
dude. I probably should. Um,
Yeah.
Cielo is she was a concert photographer, so we have her art on the wall of like Flea is up there. I think David Grohl's up there, like a few like huge.
Sweet.
Macklemore is up there, and it's really funny. The photo of Macklemore on
Ecuador's
stage.
awesome.
If you look closely in the background, she's taking the photo. Or no, I'm sorry. If you look at it, she's taking a photo into the crowd, and then next to it on the wall, like really small, is the photo her friend took from the pit, shooting the photo.
I like that.
It's wild.
I like that. You have to
I
share it to me
digress. I
someday.
apologize. So
No, that's awesome.
to go back to your referrals, are they client based referrals? Meaning, is it our clients, old clients sending them to you, or is it an agent referral? They're coming in from other markets.
It's more client referral, repeat business and referral
Okay.
locally. But there is a portion of my business that is agent driven as well. Um, Being in different networking and masterminding groups throughout the years, I've made
Mm.
friends and professional relationships with agents in different markets, and that's a good referral source too.
I'm curious, with obviously you've been doing it for 20 years, what have you found to be the most effective way? Because there's 2.5 million agents in the US. It's really hard to have a lot of one-on-one calls, right? At
Hmm.
volume. Because I mean, if you are meeting, let's say 100 new people a year, new agents, that's a ton of agents in 20 years. Like it's just,
That's a
and
lot.
100 is on a lean side, is in my opinion. But how do you proactively maintain those relationships?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm by no means perfected it or anything, but I think the rule of thumb is treat them like you would a client.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, say
Like,
more about that.
love on them, stay in touch with them, create a personal connection, I think is really important. And like you and I have talked about in um, some of our interactions, is you need to know the agent so you know how to match them up with the client and vice versa. So if I have a client going to San Francisco, I know to match them up with you because of their goals or the way they think or their personality. And I think
Mm.
that's really important. So you've got to put in the work to get to know the agent so you know how to match them.
I agree. I mean, I think nothing is worse than having a client wanting to move to insert any state and matching them up with somebody who they just don't click with. Like that agent could be the best of the best and absolutely perfect for their wants and needs, but their personalities just don't gel and your client is miserable. It's terrible. I agree. I actually I'm always more concerned about matching the right personalities than I am with the other components of it. Like how long they've been in the business or any of that stuff. Like it's almost irrelevant to will they actually enjoy working together.
Yeah, if the agent's remotely capable, everything else will fall into place.
Exactly. And I mean not for nothing, but to stay in the business, especially with time and going through these hard cycles, it's it's making people better. And so if they're thriving now, they're they're also thriving. They're doing beyond thriving in really strong markets. I actually have to say, um, like I bumped into you randomly at the retreat in San Diego. When was that? Like last year.
Yeah,
And then
about this time
I
last year.
ran. Yeah, it was actually yeah. It was about a year ago, almost to the date. Um, and then I bumped into Steve Kehoe out of Chicago, and dude, we like the three of us all became fast friends. And then I
Oh,
love that one
Steve's
day.
awesome.
Steve's awesome, and he was actually just on the podcast too. But we all sat down one day and we're like, "All right, so I got all these guests from the podcast who I'm all friends with. What do we do? What do we do with them?"
Yeah.
And through that amazing conversation, it kind of snowballed into creating the inner circle group where all the past guests get to all collaborate and talk about best practices. And that has been a total game changer for me.
It's been awesome. I've met so many great agents and made some cool friends just through the
Yeah.
inner circle.
Yeah, it's been cool. And the whole, I would say the big difference that we've baked into it is it's not another BNI group where you're just kind of like a part of it, or a mastermind group where, you have one person talking and that's it. Like this, the whole point of this group is that you have scheduled time to build relationships with each person in the group. And so, Charles Celicia is doing business in Miami. Boom. That's your go-to guy. Like, who and where people are. And so, like, if I have a client moving to Colorado, boom, Athena, I call her immediately. And so, and it's developed through this network, and it's bonkers. In the past 2 weeks, how many millions of dollars in referrals have circulated just within this group? It's crazy.
It works, man. And the conversations are just high level conversations that you wouldn't normally
Yeah.
have in in a structured mastermind setting where people are doing presentations. It's just a free for all. And hey, let's talk. This group belongs to all of us and each of us.
Yeah.
So let's go.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to this next one where the focus is events, and there's 4 specific agents that I've already pinged on the side and was like, "Hey, I would love for you to share X, Y, and Z." And they're actually going to basically like pop the hood for the group and be like, "This is what I'm doing." And I mean, these agents are north of 100 million annually in sales. Like,
Yeah. For
heavy,
a
heavy,
reason.
heavy hitters. Exactly. And they're telling you specifically, this is what I'm doing. So yeah, I get excited even just like thinking about it. And I'm so honored and privileged to be a part of it and to have brought all these amazing folks together. So thank you for helping.
Dude, thanks for being the idea man behind this. But what I really love about this group is the inner circle group. Everyone just opens up their books and, like you said, opens under the hood and just shows you their whole business. There is no, oh, I'm going to keep this because this is my secret and I'm not going to tell you about that. We're all in
Yeah.
different markets. Even some of us that are in the same market, we all understand there's enough business to go around. And the
Well, and
more
it
you
goes
share, the
back.
better we all get.
Amen. Yeah, it's our riding quote for the mission statement for this group is a rising tide lifts all ships.
That's it.
And sure, you can have 2 agents in the same market, and actually, there are 2 in San Diego. But you guys
Mm-hmm.
have very different book of business. You have very different experiences. You have very different personalities. And when it comes down to it, the client is the important component.
That's it.
And which of the 2, or 3 or 4 or 5, or how many ever are there, who are they going to actually gel with, and get have their dreams come to fruition? And that's the cool thing with this group is we all understand and respect that as the component of, listen, I might not be the best person, but the end of the day, the goal is actually the client. So make sure they are getting what they want and need.
I've always said I'd rather guide someone to the right agent and not get the business than the client get connected with some Yahoo that doesn't know what they're doing and
Yeah.
can cost them a deal, a transaction, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars and money left on the table. Um, you don't want that for the client.
I would say, in having the honor of talking to, I think we're at 87 ish episodes at this point. So I've obviously talked to a ton of agents, and I would say the hallmark of top performers is, one, they'll talk clients out of properties, and 2,
Yep.
they understand that it's about the client and not themselves. Meaning, if they're not the best fit, or if that client's not going to actually work with them well, they know to refer them to somebody else. Give up the business if it's just not going to be serving to both parties. And that's,
Yeah.
through all my conversations, that is like a personality hallmark that I would say 90+% have. It's pretty wild.
Yeah. And those are the types of agents we want to surround ourselves with because some agents out there
Yeah.
forget that. It's about them and not about their client. And that's unfortunate.
Yeah, it's true. And especially going into the new world of post NAR settlement, it's It's not transactional. And I firmly feel, and especially again, talking to all these amazing agents, I feel like the agents or the business models who maintain this transactional attitude are the ones who are going to struggle as it trends forward because they won't have the trust component of the client.
Absolutely. You don't want to approach your business as if this is the last transaction you're going to do with this person.
Yeah. I mean, and as you shared, 20 years in the business, I would imagine it's virtually countless of how many of those were hinged on somebody else, meaning it was a referral, it was a recommendation, it was something based on the reputation, which was always and is always based on reputation of the quality of the work that you did.
Well, that reputation, precedes you in a referral, and it also uh, deepens the relationship. So there's more transactions in the future, and obviously, the goal is client for life. Or I always tell my clients, I'm going to be your agent till one of us dies. So welcome to the ride.
You're like, you're not getting rid of me. It's your second marriage.
That's
I
right.
think, but I think that's also such a healthier way to look at the challenges that we face, the decisions that we have to make, and the longevity of the relationship. Where there's a term for oh gosh, I'm blanking on it. There is a term ostensible like function. It's some anyways. There's a specific term where products are now built to have a specific lifespan, and then they're designed to basically fail or break. And it's designed that way, so then you have to rebuy. And there's a specific term for it. I'm sucking right now. I can't remember. And so on the flip side, it's I find it's more healthy and reassuring when you look at somebody like, I'm going to be working with you until one of us dies. That's a completely different mindset of how you're going to approach every single piece and component moving forward, and how you're guiding them and recommending what they're perceiving and the decisions that they're making. It just changes the landscape.
Absolutely. This is now a relationship. We're in this together.
Yeah. And that goes back to your point earlier of staying in connection with them, and finding different ways to reach out and stay in their world. And not for nothing, they bought a
And
property. So you know that the property always needs care at different points in its evolution.
yes.
You can always show up with
Yeah.
that.
Yep. And it's not always easy to stay in touch. It's hard work sometimes. And so you've got to
Mm-hmm.
find ways to stay on top of it and really bring value. So to your point, I make sure that people know that if they need anything with regard to their house, whether it's putting it in a trust to protect their family, or if they need a plumber, or an electrician, or anything that has to do with the property, with all these people that bought in the last few years with these high interest rates, we're keeping an eye on when they get low enough. Can we, remind them they need to refinance and drop that rate? All these things that are involved in the house, and it can save or improve their way of life. This is just what we do.
I agree. They it's I think it was I can't remember, Maya Angelou, who said people don't remember what you did but how you made them feel. And it's 100% accurate. It's like well after the fact. And I mean, we know from being in this industry, we look at enough inspection reports, homes are in constant state of evolution. And we know roofs age, we know termites and pests create issues, we know they tend to happen seasonally. And so just popping in, not with those stupid, it's time to change your clocks back, but like, hey, right, before we go into the rainy season, here are 3 things you want to do to make sure your home is prepared to not take on water. And if you need any, if you need a recommendation for a roofer or a gutter cleaner, reach out. I'm happy to share my vetted vendors with you. And so, yeah, again, I to go back to your earlier point. I think we overanalyze, and then we wind up not doing it. We don't send any email. We don't reach out with any phone call, and then we just noodled on it for a day or a week, and then we've distracted ourselves with doing something that just feels a little bit better.
Yeah.
Is what I've observed, especially from
Cool.
these conversations.
That's true. I mean, especially if you're a homeowner, it's easier to think of the things that you need for your own home and that everybody then needs, obviously. And we see a lot more properties and transactions and good and bad things in homes, and we can kind of foresee things. But your average client
Mm,
just doesn't know what they don't know. So they may not know they need a certain, inspection on their house every few years. Um, you wouldn't imagine how many people don't have their home in a trust. That's really
it's
important.
wild.
Yeah. It takes 2 seconds to put together.
Yeah. People don't. Yeah. I think again, it's one of those things they're not educated, so they don't understand what it means. Um, and they don't understand the process or who to talk to. And that's our wheelhouse. It's like, hey, we can educate people in a bullet point. I mean, I can share with you from personal experience. My mom just recently passed away, and she was 77, and it wasn't until she was about 74 or 75 when her and her husband put their homes in a trust with my guidance. But I had to push them for multiple years beforehand of like, hey, put them in a trust. Here's why. And they finally, thankfully, did it. And I had to do the same thing with my dad, literally. Like,
That's what you
dude,
have to
put
do.
your home in
People
a
don't want to
trust.
do it. They just don't think about it. They don't know how important it is.
They don't. They don't understand it, and that's a one really simple area where you can provide help. And you know what? You know exactly who's got their properties in a trust because we can look at tax records.
Exactly. Yep.
It's
And,
that
I make
easy.
it a
It's
point to,
literally that easy.
yeah, it is. And speaking of, older adults, I make it a point to really handhold them and explain to them with a little bit more, white glove care, uh,
A
because they
hundred
need it.
percent.
They need to slow down and understand and digest the information. And they actually sometimes need step by step help to take action.
I I completely agree. It's always meeting your client where they're at, not where you want them to be. And so, yeah, I mean, younger clients with no kids, they're much more casual about their will and trust because they're not in that phase. Whereas somebody who just recently retired, they're starting to look at life in a different perspective. I mean, not for nothing. I think I think very differently than my 18-year-old son or 20-year-old. they're We're at different phases. I actually just texted you. There's a company that does wills and trust. It's online. They do it all through a questionnaire. Um, I'm not getting paid for this, but it's called trustandwill.com. I've actually recommended them numerous times, but it's a nominal fee and they walk you through the whole process. From the will portion, they get granular and they get into the weeds. Like, what do you actually want? Like, down to the very specific aspects. Like, if you're unable to make decisions for yourself, um and it's a reasonably feed process versus going to an attorney or going a different route. Not to say that this is the best. It's just, again, it's an option for people.
And people don't really want to dig into that kind of stuff, but they have to. It's an
Yeah.
important step.
It's really funny. All my trust attorneys that I've worked with in the past, all of them were booked solid all through COVID. And then once the whole pandemic fear started to wane, their book of business completely tapered off. And so, just culturally, we tend to think of things the same way at the same times. That's what culture ultimately is. And it's interesting too when you then think of the market trends when people are buying and selling, and it goes to I think Warren Buffett said it. It's when everybody's buying, sell. When everybody's selling, buy. And right now, there's some softness in some of the markets. That means there's great opportunities.
Agreed. We're seeing it. We're
Yeah,
seeing it in the market. Um, but still with the limited amount of inventory here in San Diego, those deals are out there, but they're few and far between still.
yeah. I agree. You have to be savvy. You have to know.
Mhm.
I mean, at the end of the day, everybody wants what everybody wants, and no one wants what no one wants. And so, finding the deal that everybody wants but missed is you just you need to work with a pro, and you need to really know what you're looking at. And from like an investment perspective, you just got to know your numbers. You got to know what your exit plan is.
Hmm. At the end of the day, it's a
Um,
math equation.
totally is. But on the flip side, I think when you're buying a home for yourself to enjoy, I think the equation does change a little bit, because if you're
Absolutely.
then looking at buying and holding for the next 15 years, you can kind of absorb some of the cycles within a 15-year, hopefully, appreciations, because 15 years is a pretty long time for property.
Of course, and as an owner-occupied buyer, your priorities are different. Obviously, you're looking at commute
Correct.
times, you're looking at neighborhood activity, schools. Like we were talking about earlier, where, for example, a child grows up. What street they grow up on or what neighborhood shapes and molds their future. It decides who their best friend is. It decides what school they go to. It
So
decides
true.
so many things. What sports team they're on. I mean, it not to get too philosophical, but it kind of shapes who you are, where you grow up.
That's such a I've never thought of that, and I'm like reflecting on my own life. When I was in my teens, we moved to this town, and the street was called Edgewood Circle, and it was basically one street going into it, but then the homes were all built on this huge circle, which was a mile. I think it was like a mile and a half long, which ultimately became a racetrack, um, for our dirt bikes. But it, it was weird, but there was probably a half dozen kids all my age who lived on the circle. And so, to your point, we all were really close. I'm still friends with those people, some of those people today, because it was like a closed community within a community, and we all had very similar interests, and we were surrounded by woods. The ski area was down the street, so we all did the same hobbies and hung out together, listening to rock music and having bad haircuts. It was great. It was the
And
'80s,
riding your
man.
bikes until it got dark outside.
So the streetlights came on.
I am still friends this day with my friend Jason, who I grew up across the street from since second grade.
That's
And
wild.
had my parents not moved into that house, we would have never met.
That is so wild, man.
It's kind
That's
of what I'm talking about, right?
who is it? Like um Hewitt Packard and oh god, I can't think of the other company. But basically two massive computer companies. The guys were neighbors and they were friends. And they both went on to build the two biggest, like it was Hewlett Packard is one of them, and I can't remember who the other one was, but they went on to build like the biggest companies in the U.S., which is wild.
Crazy.
Yeah,
That affected
uh,
history. And it was probably their realtor that told them, hey, we should go look at this neighborhood.
Nicely
And the
played.
parents are like, "You're
Nicely
right. Let's buy
played.
this house."
This one just came on the market. I would love to show it to you.
Yeah, right.
That
And that's
is
how this big
hilarious.
computer company started.
I mean, yeah, when Jobs started his out of his garage.
Yeah.
Dude, that nicely played. That was hilarious. Um, what else is going on, man? So you have obviously a lot of repeat business and referral business. Where are you seeing opportunities to make new introductions with people?
So, you know, this market's been pretty tight, right? This last
Yeah.
couple of years where interest rates shot up and things in a lot of markets ground to a halt. Here we felt it really tight in San Diego. And so I was talking to a team member of mine and we sat down and we said, okay, a lot of people don't want to sell right now, don't need to sell. Who has to sell? Who
Mm.
is has life changes that we can help move those along? And a lot of it here in my part of San Diego, there's a lot of original owners here from the early 70s or late 70s that have been here this whole time. And they're older adults, like I mentioned earlier in our conversation. And a lot of them are sitting on a lot of equity and they don't know what to do. And I've met with a few of them. I talk to them, walking my dog in the neighborhood or, if they've received one of my mailers. And their two biggest concerns are, where am I going to go after I sell this place?
Hmm.
And how am I going to get there? And after asking a little more questions, the biggest hurdle in the how am I going to get there is they say, Sam, I've lived here for 40, 50 years. I've got that much stuff to declutter. I don't know where to
Yeah.
start. And it's just, they're looking at the whole elephant instead of trying to take a bite.
Interesting. Yeah.
So, long answer longer is I've been talking to more and more seniors or older adults to see how we can help them downsize, move closer to family, improve their living situation.
Hmm.
We just helped an 80-year-old go from a 5-bedroom home that she lived in all alone. Her husband
Wow.
passed away, her kids have grown. We got her out of a huge 5-bedroom home with all this maintenance and utilities and things she didn't need into a small 2-bedroom home. She is so happy. She moved into a 55 plus community. She's already making friends. She's only been there a few weeks. And I went to visit her this week and she goes, I am so happy. I was scared months ago
Mm.
that I was leaving the neighborhood that I've been in for 40 years. She goes, this is great. I'm so
Wow.
excited. And it feels like I'm on vacation. I'm turning a new page in my life.
Dude, that's so good, man.
I love it.
Um, One person I'm definitely with the inner circle group, I'm 100% going to introduce you to is Ruth. Talk to her about the
Oh, yeah.
program she's currently working on.
Compass
Um,
Plus.
exactly.
Yep.
I
I'm in that.
Oh, good.
I'm one of the
I was
founding
gonna
members.
I
Hmm.
was gonna say, man, you are teed up for that
Yeah.
beyond like by far. So I'm stoked to hear that you're actually a part of it.
Yeah, that came together at the last retreat also. Richard Spearing out of our Mission Valley office, he was
Mhm.
putting together a little mastermind for agents that have been servicing older adults. And he thought maybe 10 or 15 people would show up. It was like 30 people. And we all started exchanging notes and we said, we need to stay in touch. And then it just snowballed into this big nationwide new division at Compass now.
That is wild, dude.
We
So
discovered that
you're
more of
kind of like the lucky totem for groups. That's wild, man. So holy crap, that's super cool.
it's
Um,
awesome, and it's just a bunch of it's very similar to the inner circle group where it's
yeah,
just a bunch of great agents that care that want to share. They just have a niche of, hey, we work a lot with older adults to help them, but it's the
yeah,
same concept.
100%. Yeah, it's really refining. the who, as we went back, we talked about earlier. It's not the what, it's the who that you're actually trying to provide a service to, and then really
Absolutely.
understanding what their problem is, and then presenting the solution. What's hilarious, total side note, is one day I was talking to Ruth and she was sharing this whole Compass Plus, and I said, "Wow, that's really fascinating." I was telling her, I said, from my house, my office, I can look out and there's a retirement community, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing." And she's like, "Wait, where do you live?" So I shared where I lived, and she's like, "Hold on, do you?" And she's like naming things in my neighborhood, and I was like, "Yep, yep." She's like, "Oh my gosh, Robert went to Temple, which is basically 4 minutes from my house."
No
And
shit.
I
That's
was
awesome.
like, "Whoa, yeah." So her and Robert's the CEO of Compass. They lived like probably a 10-minute walk from where I live, which is like, it's just so bizarre. It's such a small world.
That she was able to remember and then name off these things.
Yeah, I was like, whoa, what's happening right now? Yeah, it was really cool. I so deeply appreciate her. She's just such a fascinating woman who just has, I just really, I love her, her approach to life. I don't know if that sounds weird, but she just has like this sense of adventure and loves taking on challenges, like being part of this group. It's like this huge new endeavor for her, and she has the enthusiasm of 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 no one else I've seen, and so I love that about her.
I've gotten to work with her in a group setting as we've been launching Compass Plus, but I haven't had a one-on-one with her yet, and now I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, that's going to happen. That's a
Hmm.
part of our group, and I have the honor of like connecting these people one on one. And so,
Hmm.
yeah, I will 100% make sure that you will be connected. I'll text you. I'll connect you guys via text.
I'm sure you
And
love getting the text back that says, "Oh man, I just had an awesome conversation with Debbie or Grant," and you're like, "Yeah, I did that. I put you guys together."
I don't think people realize, but I strategically put people together because I know that either you're really going to gel on a topic, or one person has the solution for the other person's problem. And so, like, I'm very methodical about, there's a lot of people in the group. I think we're at like 30 people at this point. And so it's like, it's cumbersome. And so I'm like, all right, like who, and each week it's different, or every 2 weeks, it's totally a
Well,
different
I
set.
can tell you you're masterful at it because my connections have been awesome. And then I hear about other people's connections that are like, "Oh, I didn't know you do this or do that." Uh, Jason Rowland, he's in Chicago.
He's
And we
awesome.
got to
I
talking
love that
about
dude.
Chicago sports and Pearl Jam. And we didn't even get a chance to talk about each other's businesses.
He's such a
And
good
then a few
guy.
weeks later, he sends me a picture from Pearl Jam at Wrigley. He goes, "Oh, I forgot to tell you I was at this concert."
It's funny. I was just texting him yesterday. He's taking his son fishing for the first time, and I was like telling him, I was like, "Oh, I just went fly fishing last weekend," and we were catching up over that. But through the years, I've probably sent him, and vice versa, between, I don't know, quite a few million, probably like 6 million in referrals, because I understand how he works. I understand how he approaches clients. I understand the level of care. And then I also know him personally. So then I know if my clients may be a little bit more outdoors and they like mountain biking and being out in nature, I know they're going to gel because that's what he's all about. And I think, again, it goes back to the client and the who, is when you really figure out, when you solve that, then it makes the whole experience just natural.
But how cool is that? You make a friend, you share challenges and wins and experiences, and the byproduct is you get business out of it. It's a
Yeah.
win-win.
Dude, and what's crazier is I've known Jason for probably 5 years. I've talked to him numerous times, texts, emails, like the whole 9 yards. I've sent him clients, he sent me clients. I've never, ever met him in person.
No way.
Yeah, it's always weird, like weird timing. We were scheduled to meet, and like it just like he had life things happen, I had life things happen. We've never actually met, and so we're like hell bent on
That's
making
crazy.
the Colorado retreat happen.
We've got to make it happen. I'll be at that one.
That's it's going to be an awesome one. I think for again the whole inner circle. We're actually talking about doing a side event, probably staying an extra day after it ends, and then go do an adventure together just as our group, which I think would just be super fun.
Yeah, that'd be great. That's
Yeah, it's
early
a
next
really
year, I think.
yeah, it's I can't remember, March maybe. I can't remember. I'm making up
That'd
that
be
date.
perfect. The weather would be perfect
Um,
there.
and I'm in talks with Compass right now. I'm trying to get some stage time. So fingers crossed. I'll let you know how that goes. I want to do. My goal is to do a presentation on the client relationship marketing strategy, which I've basically have gleaned from all of the guests and added it to what I had going, further refined it, and kept tweaking it and tweaking it. And now it's like this. It's basically a plug and play program.
And that's at the end of the day, that's all it is. It's relationships, whether it's with your client or your wife or your friends. It's the most important thing you've
That's
got.
it's so true, man. It really is. You know, my really dear friend Lauda shared with me, and it was one of those things that when she shared it, it changed the trajectory of my business. But she's like, when you have a relationship with somebody, like let's say with your spouse, it's not you and them. A relationship is actually a third person. It's basically the two of you coming together, and then that person needs to be it needs to eat, it needs to be exercised, it needs rest, it needs all the things that a human needs. And so if you're neglecting it and ignoring it, it's going to starve to death and die. And when I started to look at relationships like that, of oh, they need to be exercised, right? And they need nourishment, and they need like there's different needs for it. It completely changed the way that I was looking at just being in relation with different people.
It needs attention. It needs
Yeah,
love.
exactly. Yeah.
Mm,
Dude, this has
I
been
love that.
awesome. I feel like we can just ramble forever, but
All right.
we're at time. But
All
I
right. All
do look.
right. We'll have to, take this offline, I guess.
We we will, and we'll be hanging out in every 2 weeks in the group, which is always awesome.
Yeah.
So
This is highlight of my every 2 weeks.
nice. That's awesome to hear. And if that ever changes, let me know because we will course correct immediately.
Oh man, it's only getting better. I remember the
Oh,
early days when it was just two or three of us, five of us on a call, and we're like, "Is this gonna work?"
oh man, it's not only working. It's like I was sharing with you before, and I was like, "Holy crap! This thing is like it's it's got its own fuel. It's
It's
wild,
thriving, man.
dude. It's so good." And the people there, and even the guest speakers that we've gotten, I'm like, "Holy crap! This is just next level." So
It's credit
thank
to you,
you.
bro.
No, it's
Thank
credit to
you.
you. I'm telling you, you're the lucky totem to start groups. If somebody wants to start a group, they have to like pull
All
you
right,
in
then.
immediately.
Then I have an idea. Let's start our billionaires real estate broker group.
Hell yeah. I'll be the first one to sign up there.
Let's go.
All right, my friend. That is a wrap.